freedoms and joys of being a single woman. However, these days, as a wife and mother of 3 adorable children, all under the age of 9, Terri can also speak to the hard work, sleepless nights, and grinding, disgusting, mind-numbing joys of family life. Ladies, sit back and prepare for a version of the Prince Charming fairy tale of your youth as told by Terri Parnell Himey, a tale that exists somewhere in the space between Cinderella and Monty Python. Please welcome Terri Parnell Himey.
I'll warn you right now that you may be surprised to discover that I'm a happily married woman with 3 beautiful children that I love. The reason that may come as a surprise is, as someone who's heard my single female friends despair over their failure to marry and procreate, I can tell them that they're just fine the way they are. Marriage and raising children is an extraordinary amount of work, and it's extraordinarily difficult, requiring patience and self-sacrifice that's simply mind-boggling. I didn't marry until I was 36 years old, and I actually never thought that I would marry because the marriages that I saw, marriages of my friends, really didn't seem like a great deal for these women. They worked, and their husbands worked as well, and sometimes they even made more money than their husbands, but when they got home, they were expected to carry the lion's share of the duties in terms of taking care of the house and taking care of the children. They were unhappy, they were exhausted, they were frazzled, and I really wanted no part of it. It had been my observation up to that time, and really nothing has changed my opinion since, that it's the woman who pays the most for this dream. The white picket fence around a beautiful house in the suburbs where all needs are met and all dreams are fulfilled. Now, the studies of married versus single well-being are kind of all over the map. The studies that receive press in parenting magazines or family magazines, they're all very pro-marriage. Married people tend to live longer. Married women show less evidence of cardiovascular disease, things like that. However, studies also show that it's more expensive and stressful to be married with children than it is to be single. I could have told them that and saved them a few $100,000. Or studies that show that single people with no kids are more fulfilled in their life choices. These studies tend to show up on dating websites or magazines about exercise or surfing or other exciting things that people who are married with children don't get to do anymore. One study of well-being that falls into my own personal sense of what's correct, which is really all I was looking for, did a comparison, and that study said that people who are married with children reported that they were happier with their choices than single people with no children. But then they asked these people, these same people, are you happy today, right now? And they were not happy right now. In fact, they said that not only were they not happy right now, but they had experienced extreme anger that day. But yet, at the same time, their impression was that they were happier overall. I think this is cultural. I think it's the same cultural phenomenon that has these young women convinced that the only way to happiness is to be married and have children. And I think single people just want the pictures anyway. You know, the family pictures. I mean, aren't they adorable? They want the baby pictures that their married counterparts show them on their phones and in their wallets and in frames on their desk. And these photos do have their value. Whenever a woman might think of putting a pillow over her husband's face in the middle of the night, it helps to look at the photo at her bedside of how happy they were on her wedding day. Aren't they sweet? When your mind is telling you that he's left the lid up on the toilet for the very last time, a photograph like this will keep you out of jail. Whenever a woman thinks of running out of her house screaming, it really helps to look at the pictures of her lovely family at the beach or at the picnic. That's why you save these pictures. When your child vomits all over their bedding 4 times in one night, you don't stop to take photographs of that. The entire second floor of your house looks like a crime scene. You've done 3 loads of laundry in like 2 hours. Neither you nor your husband is getting any sleep that night, so that's really not a point where you're going to be like, honey, oh my gosh, go get the camera. And by the way, what'd I do? There we go. And by the way, if you have children, they get sick days. You don't. I remember when I was single and I wasn't feeling well, I'd call into the office to say I wasn't coming in. I'd go to the corner store. I'd get myself some medicine and some tabloids. I'd come home. I'd put on my most comfy sweatpants and my sweater. I'd lay in front of the TV, flip through magazines, and feel sorry for myself, and I thought it was horrible. Turns out it was fantastic. I don't get to do that anymore. Mommy's sick, really? You still have to get up and get the kids ready for school. You still have to drive them there. I've actually been so sick that I had to sit down and rest 3 times while putting 2 slices of bread and a slice of bologna together. But I still had to keep moving. Then you have to get dressed and go to work because you only take your sick days when the kids are sick and you don't have any left, so you just have to keep motoring through. I also think that single women think of iconic moments, like waking up next to someone. Well, in the picture in your head, you can't smell the bad breath that comes with morning. They think of walking in their door and wishing somebody was there. You want to come home to someone? How about a house that was beautiful when you left, but it's completely trashed now because you haven't cleaned it yet? Again. How about discovering that the kids have been painting with actual paint instead of washable paint? How about 3 little girls screaming and fighting each other over the plot points in My Little Pony? I'll tell you, one of the studies I read that I found most amusing, do you know what most mothers want for Mother's Day? Time to themselves. Can you believe that, single ladies? As self-righteous as married women might act around you, we're secretly jealous of you and we want your life. Because the single fact is, single women are happy already. They can watch whatever they want to on television. They can eat whenever they want to. They can spend their money on themselves. They can pursue their intellectual curiosity, and they have more freedom of choice in their lives than other women who are tied down by choices they've already made. And they can find their stuff because it's where they left it. Single women have the freedom to look around their house or apartment, whatever they care to, and say, I should really clean up. And when they clean up, it will stay that way. For married women with children, the bar is set so low that we're like, the kids are in bed, finally, now I can clean up, yay! It's like a spa treatment for us, which is pathetic. And it's the only time we get to enjoy our house looking that way, too, for about 20 seconds. We clean it all up, and then we look at the house and say, oh, what a beautiful house, and then we fall into bed exhausted. And being married with children, it changes your self-image. Did you ever think that if you were in a crisis situation and terrorists were hijacking the plane that you'd step in? You'd be completely self-sacrificing and run up front with everybody else when they said, let's roll? I used to think I would be. But I'll tell you, if my kids were on that plane with me, I'm throwing my body over them, the greater good be damned, and we're all going down. And speaking of down, I used to wear my hair down. My hair has been in a ponytail for about 9 years. If I took the elastic out right now, it would still stay this way. And not a ponytail like that either. Like that. I used to go out with my friends and drink pretty colored drinks. Now this is more like me. I used to be cute. I used to wear cute little outfits and have a really great wardrobe. Now my 3 girls have beautiful clothes, but when I go clothes shopping, I always think that's beautiful, but can I sleep in it? That's what I wear now. This is what I used to call a nightgown. Now, and it might be hard to believe, but I used to be kind of cool. I used to follow television shows and be able to speak intelligently about them. I used to watch the Oscars, and I would always have seen every movie that was up for Best Picture. I used to know what was going on in the music industry. Now, if it's not on Kids Bop, I don't know it. If it's not on Nickelodeon or Disney, I haven't seen it. And, well, I love my children, but children in general are disgusting. When they're infants, they'll throw up on you and all over your carpet and furniture, and they will poop on you, literally. Who else would you take that from? From anyone else, that would be an enormous social faux pas, and perhaps even illegal. And I love my husband, but men in general are infuriating. There's not a man alive who can take the things out of his pockets before he puts his pants in the laundry. And they start to smell at the least little effort. But, that aside, if you meet the right guy, then go for it. I did. But if you think for a moment that he would place his hopes and dreams before yours, you're better off alone. If you think for a moment that he would ever intimidate you mentally or physically around to his point of view, you're better off alone. If you think he's not going to worship you for the rest of your life and jump in front of a bullet for you, you're better off alone. The only time it's worth it is if he's going to add to your life, make sacrifices for you, and be an equal partner in raising your children. So if you're worried about who's going to take care of you when you get old, buy long-term care insurance and hire someone to take care of you. Work hard, save your money, beef up your 401k, buy a beautiful condominium, build yourself a big pink marble bathroom, and thank me later. Send me a note. That would be lovely.
Right? Cinderella and Monty Python. Exactly. Gina Paigen's presentation today is a very personal one. It is the story of her journey of coming to terms with her own experiences of severe trauma and her path to a place of healing. It is her personal evolution through the stages of self-compassion, letting go of shame, taking ownership of her own life dramas, and ultimately allowing forgiveness. All of which has led Gina to a life of strength, power, and choice. Please welcome Gina Paigen.
Thank you, thank you. Oh my God, what a beautiful crowd. What an honor to be here with you all today. This is a story about the amazing possibilities that exist in the space between. It begins in 1969, the summer of love. I was 15 years old. I let my hair go long and wild, and my feet go bare. I hung out in the park, and I joined the revolution. It was also the first time I was raped. It was 3 years after it happened before I found the nerve to admit to anyone that I'd been raped. And when I did, I prefaced my confession with, "It was all my fault." I said it because I believed it. At 18, a man put his fist in my face in a bar. At 22, I had my jaw dislocated for reasons I will never know by someone I was talking to at a party. And at 25, I was raped again, this time by a guy I'd been dating off and on, a policeman no less. And through it all, I carried the same self-defeating message of shame and self-blame. When I discovered feminism, the message I heard from my sisters in the movement was, it wasn't your fault. It's never the woman's fault. And as much as I wanted to believe it, instinctively I knew something was missing. Fast forward to age 40, married and divorced. I met a man who seemed to have everything my previous relationships had lacked. And when he loved me, it felt like everything was right with the world. Except he only loved me half the time. The other half, he criticized everything about me. The way I walked, the way I talked, the way I dressed, what I ate, what I read. He belittled my friends. At one point, he even suggested I disown my family. In fact, the only thing he didn't criticize, oh my gosh, I'm shaking. The only thing he didn't criticize was my performance in the bedroom, except that he said I wanted it too much. And he demonstrated his feelings for me by leaving me once a week for 11 years. He would always come back, full of love and affection, at just the moment when I thought I was gathering the strength to tell him to stay away for good. We went through this cycle literally hundreds of times, and each time I let myself believe things would change. The message I internalized, you're not worthy. And by the way, you're a bit of a whore. What haunted me most all those years was the shame. The kind of shame that sits like sour milk in the pit of your stomach. The kind of shame that makes you pray that the world will never see through you to the truth of who you really are. It took me 11 years to close the door on the cycle of emotional abuse. And when I finally got out, I spent the next year rediscovering aspects of myself I had carefully locked away in the hopes of making myself lovable. So I was caught completely off guard 2 or 3 years later, long enough to believe that I was free and clear when I ran into my ex at a function. And as we exchanged small talk, I realized I was still hooked. I'm not likely to forget the emotional impact of that moment, feeling myself caught in what I knew was a dangerous attraction on the one hand, and so disappointed in myself for not being over it on the other. Eventually he left. I took a deep breath, waited for what I felt like was a safe amount of time, and headed home. And as I pulled around the corner, I saw him parked by the side of the road. And I knew he was waiting for me. The inner dialogue that followed went something like this. He's waiting for me. I think he still wants me. Do I have to remind you, you were as small as you've ever been when you were in that relationship. But no one has ever made me feel so incredibly loved or so despised. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he truly loves me. Maybe this time it will be different. Maybe you're an idiot. How pathetic are you that we're even having this conversation? And all the while, I was literally clutching the steering wheel. And then something amazing happened. In the space between my emotion and my action, I forgave myself. I forgave myself that I wasn't over it. I forgave myself that I let myself get into it in the first place. I forgave myself for wanting to go back. I forgave myself for being vulnerable. Ultimately, I forgave myself for being human. And when I forgave myself, I let go of the shame. When I let go of the belief that vulnerability was weakness, I began to see that even in my glorious imperfection, I was enough. I acknowledged my shadow. I honored my tender heart. And leaning in to self-compassion, I let go of the shame. And when I let go of the shame, I stepped into strength. And when I stepped into strength, I saw that I wasn't broken, just human. In that space between my emotion and my action, I found choice. And I chose in service of my life. I didn't go back. I kept on driving. It has taken me a long time to come to terms with my story and to make sense of it. And here's the hard truth. I am not now, nor have I ever been, a victim. If I look back over my experiences, I can see the choice points along the way. Back in the summer of 1969, I didn't have to talk to that man in the park. And when he said, "Hey, sweet baby, come with me," I didn't have to go. And I didn't have to walk with him into that building or through to that back stairwell. And by the time he had his hands around my throat and was threatening to kill me, I had made too many bad choices. What drew me in each time was my own aching desire to be loved, and what held me in was this deep-seated terror of being rejected or abandoned. Let me get one thing clear. I didn't ask for any of it. And I'm not letting the perpetrators off the hook. The part I played in my story doesn't make anything about what they did okay. They had choices just as I did, and they chose wrongly. As human beings, we are always co-creating in every moment of every day. And as co-creators, we are nothing short of partners in our own lives and our own experiences, even the difficult ones. The power of our co-creativity lies in our capacity for choice. And our capacity for choice lies in the space between our emotion and our action. The space between my fear of being unlovable and my willingness to follow a strange man into a back stairwell. The space between this almost overwhelming desire to finally prove myself lovable, despite 11 years of self-abandonment, and the decision to go forward or to go back. Choice is power in its purest form, not the power of me over you, but the power of self-compassion, the power of knowing we are enough, the power of our own truth, the power of our own strength. And that is a power that no one can take from us, ever. From the place of that power, even in the face of our deepest fears, we can choose to be masters of our own lives. There is a beautiful epilogue. As I have been bringing this story out into the world, every time I share, someone comes forward and taps me on the shoulder and says, "I need to talk to you." And so begins a process of renewal. As I share my story, as we each share our stories, an opening is created for another woman to step out of her darkness and into a new space, a space of revelation, a space of choice, a space where the power of self-compassion begins to melt away the crippling impact of shame and lets the healing begin. These are my words.
Thank you, Gina.